And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are finally doing our winners and losers, otherwise I like to call rated and slated. We are going to go from last to first and where we think they deserve to be. Who is they? They are the F1 drivers of Australia. Well, not all of Australia, but they were in Australia on the Sunday, funnily enough, having a race. Il Melbourne, quite a wet race, so get your flippers out, get your Crocs out. They are waterproof. I wear a pair, sorry. And let's have a look then. So, who is going to be the worst driver of the 2025 Australian Grand Prix? I'm very, very sorry, but it's this guy, Liam Lawson. Now, to be fair, I think Liam Lawson is a great driver. I think he really showed Perez up in Mexico. I've just finished that Drive to Survive episode, but given how good I think he is, and given how good I think he should be, he really underwhelmed me here. Qualifying, no. And the race, very average and out again. Pretty much copied Isaac Hadjar, who, to be fair, out-qualified him, didn't he? I mean, that's the kicker here. Isaac Hadjar out-qualifying Liam Lawson, who qualified 18th. I mean, 18th, Isaac Hadjar 11th. Just saying. Oh dear. But China is a new weekend. It is coming up this weekend, and I've absolutely no doubt that Liam Lawson will do good. Next up, no, it's not Isaac Hadjar. No, it's not Ollie Behrman. It's not Jack Doohan. It's this guy. I know, shock horror. Now, give me a sec. The reason I'm not trying to be controversial for controversial sake, he did a good qualifying. He was solid in qualifying, but he just went over the gravel. He made a mistake, and yes, he out-qualified Lance Stroll by just under a tenth. No, I don't expect Fernando Alonso to do that. And it was a crucial race where Aston Martin, potentially not the best team, but it's one where they could have scored a decent amount of points. I think Alonso will come back and do absolutely amazing. Still, no Isaac Hadjar. Maybe I'm paying favourites, but yeah. Hey, I might be being biased, but next up is Oliver Behrman. Why? Well, Oliver Behrman, he did not start in the race because he crashed in practice. A dry practice as well, and really, I mean, to be fair, that completely affected the rest of his weekend. However, he did, he was up there classified as 14th, beaten by his teammate, understandable. He beat the likes of Liam Lawson, Gabriele Bortoleto, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Jack Doohan, Isaac Hadjar, but I can't negate the crashing in practice. I just can't do it. Next up, we have, still no Isaac Hadjar, but we have Carlos Sainz, who went off on lap number 2, but he was out-qualified by his teammate in 10th. Now, with all the hype going through, absolutely amazing. And also, honourable mention for his assistance in the strategy for helping Alexander Albon. So maybe being this slow is a bit harsh for Carlos Sainz, but there we go. And once again, I think this guy is going to have an absolutely amazing season. And then we have this guy here, Jack Doohan, who, qualifying, I think he was really unlucky in qualifying. He was looking, in my opinion, to potentially beat his teammate. He was looking really, really handy. Sadly, he ended up just 14th, and Gasly ended up 9th in the echelons of the top 10. But then he made that mistake, didn't he? That whoops a daisy. Yeah. Oh, Jack Doohan. So after Jack Doohan, we have this guy here, Isaac Hadjar. Yeah, people are maybe thinking he's too high up. The big part is he was very strong in practice. He didn't throw it in the wall like Ollie Behrman. He did in the end. under the safety car. But he qualified 11th. He beat all of the rookies, including an Alonso and Stroll, Antonelli and a Lawson. I mean, Antonelli and Lawson, they're the two key ones because they're rookies as well, although Lawson, debatable. But he beat them in what is considered a far inferior car, in my opinion. So that's why he qualified up there. He wasn't afraid to show his emotions. His interview, he was he's very disappointed. He got potentially more TV time in the end than he otherwise would have done. So next up is Gabriele Bortoleto, the B grade driver. Yes, he didn't. In qualifying, he was not bad, 15th. The important thing, he out-qualified Nico Hülkenberg, which is absolutely, for me, a massive statement. Sadly, in the race, he didn't successfully do as well. 16th, classified at least, in the race. So, yeah. Next up, we have the other Haas driver, Esteban Ocon, who, sadly, didn't qualify particularly well. Then again, nor did Ollie Behrman. Does have the slowest car? I don't know. But finishing 13th, unlucky for some. So considering where he finished, that's solid-ish race for the Hasty, but you can't. Yeah, you want more. Next up, you'll recognise this guy, Lewis Hamilton. So an average qualifying, but here's the thing: is that as good as the Ferrari's going to really be in the race? He spun in qualifying. It was Leclerc sort of spinning in the race. He didn't spin in the race, but him and his engineer, yeah, a very medium weekend for Lewis Hamilton. If C grade was such a thing in this rated and slated, that's exactly what Lewis Hamilton would be getting. Yeah, he would be getting a C grade. Really, I wouldn't say massively disappointed. Underwhelmed is probably the best thing, and we do expect more. I expect a lot more in China. Next up, we've got Pierre Gasly, who finished 11th in the race, just outside of the points you kind of felt between with him and another guy we'll be talking about in a bit. Really should have got points, and sadly they didn't. But yeah, I mean, Pierre Gasly, he qualified 9th. He was in the top 10. We do feel though that both Alpine and all the Williams team are that next of the best. So yeah, and next up we have the man. He qualified on the 4th row, didn't he, in the end? 7th, and he ended up finishing. Well, let's be fair, not much better really. I think he was 5th at one point, but he ended up finishing 8th. Now, to be fair to both Leclerc and Hamilton, Ferrari did do a risky strategy, particularly Hamilton, thinking there was a point where they thought we could win this race. Potentially, if it completely stopped raining at that point. Sadly, it didn't. It continued. And yeah, it's the Ferrari strategy. Next up, we have Oscar of the Piastri. Now, why? I mean, this guy finished all the way down in 9th. He qualified in 2nd. He had an absolutely fantastic race. At points, he looked like he was going to challenge Lando Norris. Or was it just that Lando Norris was looking after his tyre? However, that one mistake where he followed Norris into the gravel, one mistake at one turn is all it takes for your weekend to go horribly wrong. It did, sadly for Oscar. But Oscar never gave up, did he? I mean, he was there spinning the wheels. He had the tenacity and the whereabouts to think, okay, hit the reverse button. He got out and he ended up doing what was on the last lap, an absolutely amazing move on Lewis Hamilton, who did give him the space, to be fair to him, but it was still an absolutely amazing move from Oscar Piastri, a Piastri move. And that hopefully gave him a bit of confidence back. He's going to have to wait a year, sadly, to get that home Grand Prix win, which I think he's most certainly capable of. But Oscar Piastri there. So next up, we have Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, I felt it was kind of like a bit of bad luck and strategy calls. In a way, not that much fault of Yuki, who made him finish just outside the top 10 in 12. But all along, he was looking like he was going to score points. He qualified really, for him, he qualified 5th. I mean, absolutely amazing was Yuki. A fantastic weekend, though, I think, still, for Yuki Tsunoda, in spite of not scoring any points. I know, we haven't spoken about Lance Stroll yet. I know. It looks like I'm going to have to eat more humble pie, because this is the man. I mean, okay, he qualified 13th, not particularly good, but he's not too bad in the wet, is he? He's not too shabby in the wet. Qualifying 6th. Oh, Lance, absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, unlike Alonso, he kept it out of the wall. It was a solid weekend, and yeah, he didn't embarrass himself. Next up, we've got the last guy on the podium, George Russell. So yes, I know, there are other people that are going to be higher than him. I get it. And I know you're thinking, why is Russell so far down? He finished on the podium, but he didn't really have to, other than stay out of the track. He kind of was in the third fastest car after Verstappen and the two McLaren, and he was just there. And it was kind of like, as long as he didn't do anything wrong, he was going to finish in 3rd at that point. Once Piastri did the whoopsie-daisy. And he was, at some points, he was almost racing in no man's land. I don't want to take it away. It was an absolutely solid 3rd place from Russell, but still, solid. Next up, we have Alexander Albon, initially 4th, then punched back down to 5th, thanks to the Andrea Kimi Antonelli non-penalty. But what an absolutely weekend. I mean, he out-qualified Carlos Sainz, which was absolutely amazing. Qualifying 6th, he bettered that by 1 place, thanks, I think, in part really to Piastri's whoopsie-daisy. But he looked like the team leader this weekend, didn't he, in the race and in qualifying. And I think he showed all of us that, whereas we all think, many think, Carlos Sainz may well be the better long-term prospect, he said no. He may not be the long-term prospect, and absolutely fair play to Carlos Sainz. So just off a couple of places off our massive podium was Max Verstappen. There's a couple of, I think, better races than him, but not much. Now the next lot are all a cigarette paper's length. Max Verstappen in that Red Bull did absolutely everything he could have done to try and win that race. Yes, you know, I'm not saying he was lucky with the safety car. The safety car certainly helped, and Lando Norris making that whips at daisy certainly helped, because he damaged his floor, which allowed Max a sniff of a win. You have to wonder, had this race carried on for about 2 or 3 more laps, would Max Verstappen have won? And you know, I think toss a coin, because potentially he could have done. What an amazing race though for Max Verstappen. But there's a couple of people who I think were just a tiny bit more amazing than Max Verstappen, and one of those people is Nico Hülkenberg. Why? Well, Nico Hülkenberg, he finished 7th, getting 6 points, okay? But when you consider, a lot of people were suggesting this is one of the slowest cars, and he kept it out the wall. He kept it strong, didn't do anything silly, and let's be fair, nearly most of the cars that finished behind him should have finished ahead of him. Nico Hülkenberg did absolutely amazing. Well done, Nico Hülkenberg. You are 3rd on our podium of greatest driver for Australia 2025. But who is the number 2 greatest driver for Australia 2025? Sorry, it's this guy here. It is Lando Norris. I think driver of the day on the day. Absolutely amazing. Yes, he did make that mistake, but he recovered, and he soaked up the pressure from Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. Maybe in another world he wouldn't have won, but in this, you know, in this universe, he most certainly did, and he looks like now a championship contender. At least this drive does. Well, I think we need to see a bit more evidence to confirm that. But this drive alone, they say you're only as good as your last race, and he did look like a championship contender. But who got the number 1 slot? Well, it wasn't Norris. It was this man here, Kimi Antonelli. I mean, the guy, he qualified so far back. I imagine that the lights were a bunch of dots to him. Bear in mind, qualifying all the way back in 16th. But then finishing on the road in 4th, and he did finish 4th, just off the podium. Yes, he made that mistake in the race, but he kept it out of the wall, and then he came back. You know, after passing Hülkenberg, he spun, and then he had to repass Hülkenberg, which wouldn't be particularly easy. But the important thing is, kind of like Oscar Piastri, Kimi Antonelli never gave up, scoring points on his debut. Absolutely fantastic. And because of the points he and Russell scored, Mercedes are now even Stevens. Well, other than the win, but they're equal on points in the Constructors' Championship with McLaren, which is something no one, I think, would have guessed going into Australia and coming out of Australia. So roll on Japan. Kimi Antonelli, you are our man of the race. Don't know why we needed to do the pauses so much, but there we go. But anyway, if you're not already, give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. If you're already subscribed, just watching this is enough for us. But if you want to do a bit more, hit that like button. I'd appreciate that. And after hitting the like button, if you want to comment below, that's going to help us even more. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon. This is where I hit the outro, I think. Yep. See you later. Stay safe.